going to start in chapter 8. I do not write well, so it is what it is.
It's
fine.
I do that more for me than anything. It kind of helps me get stuff laid out in my brain.
The A was
Except for
like
when he
A.
misses one last week and made me shut the Bible like, we're done.
And you had one written over here, and I didn't ever
You
see
missed
it.
one over here and then you had some over here.
And I thought we were done.
Okay, so
You got me.
last week we finished up the Sermon on the Mount, and he went into this thing about building your foundation being on a rock or being on a stand. Well, after that, he immediately gets into the situation where he meets this leper, not leopard, leper. And leprosy back then, I'll just give you kind of an overview if you wasn't here Sunday, because he talked about leprosy. Leprosy is just associated with sin only. Back then, we would say go to the doctor if you got leprosy, but if you were back then and you had leprosy, they would make you go to the priest. And the one that would have seen you back in this time would have been Ananias and Caiaphas. And I think that was the right two names. They are the actual ones that judged Jesus and ended up getting him put on the cross. So one of the first things that Jesus is and in his front of his ministry would have sent this leper to them two people, and they would have seen firsthand leprosy being healed. So it would have been like a calling card, a business card handed to Caiaphas and Ananias. So keep that in mind when we're reading. I thought it was interesting. And when we get to reading, Luke is a doctor, and he kind of explains the condition this guy's in a little bit better. The leper is full of leprosy, means that he's probably missing extremities, fingers, toes, maybe his nose is falling off. There's no telling how bad it was, but for him to say he was full of leprosy probably meant it was pretty bad. And leprosy was, as soon as you find out you had leprosy, it was like a death sentence. You couldn't go in public, you couldn't be with your family, you couldn't work a job, you would be an outcast. Anytime you got within so many feet, you'd have to start yelling, unclean, 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 so people wouldn't get close to you, and you could not touch a leper. So in the story, we're going to see Jesus touch the leper and what happens. We're going to start out, chapter 8, verse 1. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. We talked about it before. There was probably a couple thousand people with him at all the time. A lot of folks was following him. And a lot of them were there for just a show. Some of them believed in who he was. There was a big array of different kind of people following him. So he's talking about coming down off the mountain. You know, he's just teaching his disciples on the Mount of Olives. It ain't on the Mount of Olives. It's on a different mountain. But it was the Sermon on the Mount is what he's coming down off of. Verse 2, and behold, there came a leper, and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. There's a lot to gather from just that statement. Lord, if thou wilt. Not that I doubt that you can. I know you can do it, but if it's in your will, do it, is what he's saying to him. You can make me clean if you're willing to do that. How many times do we pray and just doubt that he could do it, much less know that he could do it, and just ask him if he's willing to do it? It's just something to think about when you're praying. Verse 3, and Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will. Be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed.
Now you told us that medically you couldn't get over leprosy.
And you still
There's no
can't.
cure.
There's no
So
cure
that was
for
just
it.
the only one that was a miracle.
Yeah, and you
Jesus
notice that it
cleansed
ain't,
you,
he
and
says
it's gone.
cleansed, not
Cleansed.
healed.
Oh, okay.
That's odd. I just think that's neat that in Leviticus, they give a real strict rules on how to diagnose leprosy for the simple fact it's a living death sentence. If they say, hey, you got leprosy, you're cast. It's pretty much like being an outcast in jail. It's real odd. You gotta go in and be, they sacrifice. They'll have 2 turtle doves. They'll sacrifice one and dip hyssop and dip the water. They'll have holy living water and blood, and they'll dip the one little dove in there, and they'll let it go. And then you got a picture of Christ there. You got living the blood of Christ, or the blood of a sacrifice. You got living water, and then you got the dove that was dipped in it and let go. And they would do that and pray over the guy, and then after 7 days they would check him. It's all in Leviticus, you can read about it, and they would check him after that, and then they would go through this different ceremonies. But if you had leprosy, you was done, you was toast.
Read Leviticus 14 and it explains the whole ordeal of going through the cleansing of leprosy.
So he says, I'm willing, and he heals him. And Jesus said unto him, Now, see thou tell no man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testament unto them. Okay, so that's all this stuff I explained to you is why he went to the priest, to show, it's Jesus' calling card. There's only been a couple of other times in the Bible that leprosy was healed in the Old Testament, and this would have been a big deal, that leprosy. And for Luke to say he was full of leprosy, it was noticeable. It was an outside corruption of the skin. You would have known without a shadow of a doubt, but he was eaten up with leprosy. And could you imagine, Jesus touched him. I don't know if it says it on here, but I think in Luke it says that Jesus touched him. And I think it's odd how you can get dirty from somebody else. They're saying, hey, don't touch anybody because you can catch leprosy, but when God touches you, it cleans you. I think that's...
It says in 3, he put forth his hand and touched him.
And it just... Is that what it says in verse 3?
Uh-huh. Jesus put out his
Jesus
hand
put
and
forth
touched
his
him.
hand.
Yep, it says it in here too. I just skipped over it. I just underlined it. And then there's people that argue that Jesus touched somebody that was unclean, but was he unclean by the time he touched him because he already healed it? It's just odd. Could you imagine if he would have been lost fingers and his ear rotted off and stuff, and Jesus touched him, and it's like,
Yeah, right.
I just think that would be cool.
Restore them.
Hey,
But you know, one of the
Lord, I put him
times
rub
Jesus
gloves
healed
in his finger.
somebody, it said he made them whole. He just didn't heal them.
he saved them.
I mean, everything was made whole like brand new. So if they was missing an arm, they had an arm.
Well, I believe that because when I had my heart attack, and I can tell you paperwork, when they done catheterized my heart, I had an 80% blockage. I can bring the heart and all in here and show y'all, and it's marked. 80% or 40%, I was 39 years old. And when I went just here last year, no blockages. I come off my heart medicine.
Amen. Thank
My
God.
heart is good, it's beating the right. So when I ask him to come to my heart, see my soul, take all that away, woo.
Well, I had a huge cyst taken out when I was 13, right? I mean, it was like the size of a football, and every segment of the MRI had cancer in it, solid cancer. Oh boy, and everybody prayed, and that was when you could pray in school, middle school, pray. And they went to do the biopsy on it, and there was a single bit, no cancer, none.
That's all right,
Wow.
right there.
You should see it, on the slide.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome.
See my heart now, see my heart then, 39 and 59.
So-
Clean my dirty vessel.
So get this, you come off the Sermon on the Mount, and by the time we read the Sermon on the Mount, we ought to feel like we're full of leprosy. Spiritually, by the having to live by these different things and how it makes us feel. Just the touch of Jesus, and you're clean. But get this, the next one's even more awesome than that. Verse 5, it kind of goes into a different story, the centurion's faith. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion beseeching him, So a centurion come looking for him. A centurion is one of the Roman soldiers that's over, guess his name, century is 100. So a centurion would have been over at least 100 men. He would have been like a head soldier. Just keep that in mind when he says what he says. It helps to know that. And saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of palsy, grievously tormented. What is palsy? I don't know.
Paralyzed.
Paralyzed.
Yeah.
Grievously tormented. I think he was more than just paralyzed. I think he was like very sick if he was grievously tormented. Usually being paralyzed, you probably got bed sores from laying on your back.
Oh, yeah.
We read about that in Mark
You
Sunday.
usually get some kind of infection. It's probably terrible.
That's where you have muscle spasms.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, Buddy's messed up bad if he's paralyzed. All right. And Jesus said unto him, I will come and heal him. Well, the centurion knows. I'm going back off of, going to explain stuff. I'm going to pick back up on that in a second. Centurion knows the Jewish religion, and the centurion knows that a Jew is not welcome at his house. It's unclean to go into a Gentile's house. So the centurion, you ever seen in the Bible where it mentions centurions, they're always looked at in a good light. They're always super stand-up people. They're always really awesome folks. They've never been talked about bad. Now, anything above centurion, kings, and all this stuff, they're usually not good people. Centurions are always looked at as good people. Look at what the centurion does. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof. But speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to them, or to this man, go, and he goeth. And to another, come, and he cometh. And to my servant, do this, and he doeth, or doeth it. So he just broke it down for Jesus. He goes, Jesus, dude, I know that you're something seriously special. I've heard stories about you cleaning folks, healing folks, making lame people walk. He goes, I know that you're a man over authority. I know that you're able to do this. And if you'll just speak it, I know that you don't even have to come to my house. All you got to do is speak it, and it'll happen. Because I can say to my men, do this, do that, and they'll do it without me having to go there. That's what the centurion's thought. Verse 10, when Jesus heard it, what he just said, he marveled and said to them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great a faith, no, not in Israel. If you make God marvel, you're doing something. These people are chasing this man, trying to get him to touch him, or trying to get a touch from him, a healing touch. But this centurion comes to him and says, I'm going to stand in the gap. I just want you to just do it from here. I know you can. I got that much faith in you. Just that is amazing how far faith will go. And you notice the man that's sick, it's not the man that's sick's faith that's healing him at this point. It's the man that's standing in the gap for him. That's interesting, ain't it?
That's what happens when we stand in the gap upstairs for somebody. We don't have to be there to touch them. But God's gonna be there to touch them.
Wouldn't it be awesome to have so much faith in God that he would marvel at you and say, man, I ain't seen this kind of faith in a long time. Something to think about, y'all. 11.
When he leads us with the Holy Spirit, we can lay our hands on somebody and heal them.
Oh, I
if
believe
we have
it.
that much faith. Sure
Oh, yeah.
can.
The only thing that limits an unlimited God is your faith.
Right. Amen.
11, and I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. So this is prophecy. This is the first time that you're going to see prophecy of Gentiles being part of the kingdom of heaven. Verse 12, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into utter darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the self same hour, whatever that means. In that same hour, his guy was healed.
He was healed at the time that Jesus spoke it.
When Jesus spoke it, he was healed. By the time the centurion got back, old buddy was up.
And he asked him about what time it was and everything and all, and he told him.
Yeah, that's
So
in
he, you know, he-
that's in a different gospel.
Yeah, it's in
John,
Mark.
is it John or?
It's in Mark too, that's what, I had last Sunday.
It's in one of the other gospels because it says, when did he get better? And it was like, this amount of time. And he goes, wow, that was when I was talking to Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the same story.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, I think I was going. Oh, and this is a picture of the Gentiles coming in from the east, the south, and the west, and coming and being, the kingdom of heaven. But it also is a picture of what we've been seeing for the last 2,000 years. The poor Jews being persecuted and all this stuff, and weeping and gnashing of teeth. You went through the Holocaust. All those were God's people. And it's still over there. They're tormented to today. So that's prophecy right there. Just showing it, open your eyes. You don't believe anything else about the Bible, that's something that you can see and believe there. So we're shifting gears again. I guess they've done got to where they're going and they made it back to Peter's house. 14, and when Jesus was coming to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. Now, if she was laying down and was sick of a fever, it was probably a real bad fever. This is for everybody that has a terrible mother-in-law. Something. I just happen to have an awesome mother-in-law. 15, and he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and ministered unto them. So immediately, when Jesus touched her hand, it's awesome to see all these miracles. But what did the woman do? When you come down off of being sick and having a high fever, I don't know about y'all, but it takes me at least a day and a half, 2 days to recuperate from that. I can't just get up and just start doing stuff. This chick got up and started ministering. That means she got up and cooked them some food, probably.
Started serving.
Yeah.
That's the way it happens when he does it, instantly.
But what is that a picture of? That's something that we need to be doing. We need to be ministering to the Lord. We need to be doing work for Him. There's a fine line we were talking about earlier. Some religious person works because they think they can get to heaven. Well, when you're already saved, your works should be a labor of what's in the inside. That's what we call fruit. It's because we're torn and don't want to see anybody go to hell. So she immediately started doing work. And I totally lost my spot.
16.
Okay, yeah, I see my little mark now. When the even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils. So later on that evening, and he cast out the spirits with his word and healed all that were sick. It don't say some that was sick, it says all that was sick. Now, if potentially a thousand people's following Jesus around, Jesus is working his tail off here. You got people having seizures, people that's possessed, people that are just randomly sick. It says if the things that Jesus done was documented, the world wouldn't be able to contain the books that would be written. this is part of that. You gotta think that there was a whole lot of people that was affected by Jesus. And I like Matthew because of verse 17. It shows you the Old Testament, how things were fulfilled. 17, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses. And the verse after this in Isaiah is a really quoted scripture. I forget what was 8:17. It would be Isaiah 53:4. Well, 53:5. If you go and read that one, you'll say, man, I've heard that 100 times. The Isaiah is a real good book. If you'll read it, there is inevitable that Isaiah is talking about Jesus. And all the way through it, Jesus, 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 Jesus. That was 700 years before this happened. That's 700 years. That's a whole bunch of years. And there's like so many passages of Isaiah that Matthew quoted all the way through this stuff that, it was prophecy being fulfilled. If you're skeptic, 700 years of some dude writing something and then it happening all out of just one person, the odds are like astronomical. It's not able to happen without God's intervention.
I like it when it said he healed them all. He just didn't heal the one that was believing in him. He didn't heal the ones that was just, that really took him as their life, their savior and all. He healed all of them.
Every one of them.
And it says he did it with a word. Didn't say he spoke many words, he just said he did it with a word.
But he had to do it and everything so the people would believe.
And even then, people didn't believe.
Yeah, they didn't believe him.
You got a dead guy, Lazarus, for instance, dead 4 days. Even in their belief, after 3 days, your spirit's gone.
Yeah,
so okay.
You had to wait 4 days.
4 days, buddy calls him up. Hey, wake up, come on, let's go. That would have been, if anything else, I could that was staged. That guy was pretending not to be able to walk. And that was staged. But buddy being in a tomb for 4 days, wrapped up, I mean, that's hard to stage that.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to stage that one. You can't accidentally be dead for 4 days. I don't think it works like that. And then be woke up by just saying, hey, wake up, come on. Okay, so again, we're moving. If anytime you see, I'm gonna find out what this little thing's called, that little backwards P. Anytime you see one of those, something's changing. The whole atmosphere is changing. He's probably at a different spot, more likely. Yeah, mine's got a backwards little P.
Some of them are clear and some of them are black.
Okay, so when you see that, just know that they're moving. They're different spots. I always say that, and y'all always look at me like I'm crazy, but I see that and I mentally think that they're not in the same spot anymore. It helps to make them go somewhere else and picture all these people. Now when Jesus saw great multitudes about him gathered around him, he gave commandment to depart unto the other side. And the centurion scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. Okay, so this scribe, a scribe is almost like a lawyer. He would have known all about what was written of our Old Testament. He would have known all about it. And you got to think that Jesus has got a bunch of redneck fishermen with him and a bunch of not learned individuals with him. It seems like by now I would be wanting to find somebody that knows a little something. But this is what Jesus tells him. Verse 20, and Jesus said unto him, the foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. Okay, that's an interesting saying. This is the first time you'll see Jesus say the Son of Man. He'll say it a lot from now on. But the interesting thought behind what he just said is, this is not my home. I don't live here. And in essence, we don't live here. We're just pilgrims. You ever heard that song? We're passing through. That's the kind of the mindset that we need to have. And Jesus says, I don't have a home here. I don't have nowhere to lay my head. I don't have a house. I'm always traveling. I'm just traveling. That's what I'm doing. And spiritually and physically, he didn't have a house. Well, he actually did have a house in Galilee, so that's where he lived. But he just told this guy, and it probably would have made him scratch his head and say, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
And another of his disciples, this is verse 21, said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. But Jesus said unto him, follow me, and let the dead bury their dead. That sounds harsh. It sounds harsh to say that. What does it mean? It means, in the Old Testament, it was your duty as a son to stay with your family, and when your father passed, have the ceremony and, make the burial ceremonies to follow the law. He's saying right here, the dead will bury their dead, and that's spiritually dead. Hey, they'll be okay. You don't have to follow that law. Just, follow me. And obviously, we don't know if the guy followed him or not. But that's an interesting thought. Don't live by man's, I think what he's saying, in other words, don't live by man's tradition. Again, we're changing thoughts. It says Jesus calms the winds and the sea. I didn't write the and the sea part because I was running out of time. And when, this is 23, and when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. Okay, so there's a big pillow in the boat. I forget what it's made out of, canvas or leather or something, that they would have rested in. The boats ain't very big. I think they're only like 18 foot, 20 foot long, 7 or 8 foot wide. They're not huge ships. So when they say ship, we're thinking ship. Well, it's a big boat, okay? The lake that they're in is not a super big lake. It's not like the ocean. But where it's at, there's some mountains that are over to one side, and then you got desert over on the other side, and when the wind starts meeting each other there, you got really, really hot and really, really cold, and it gets ugly out there is what they say, 8 foot waves. So think about that, 8 foot waves out in the middle of this lake, and the thing's crashing over, and Jesus is asleep. And that's another thing to think about. Jesus was a human being. When he went to the woman at the well, he was thirsty. When he went with his disciples, and he says, in a different one, he says, over to the other side. Not, hey, we're going to sink halfway over there, we're going to swim. He says, we're going over to the other side. And then he's asleep. They're in the boat, and the boat's got waves, 8 foot waves crashing over in it, and it's filling up full of water. Could you imagine they're probably just bailing water out of the thing as fast as it's coming in? And one of the other gospels says that there was other boats with them. So there's more than just one boat, and they're probably all saying, hey, y'all wake up Jesus, There's something, we're dying here, okay? But for you to have that much peace in your heart to know that your Father has control of it, and you can sleep on the pillow just having that mentality Jesus had, he knew his Father was going to take care of him. It may have been a test for the boys, they ain't gonna tell him. And his disciples came, this is verse 25, came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we're perishing. And one of the other ones, in one of the other gospels, it says, do you not care that we're perishing? Do you not care? It's like, Jesus, we're dying, do you not care? It's kind of, and I think that was Peter probably said that, because he always sticks his foot in his mouth.
It was bold.
Yeah, he was. 26, and he said unto them, where are ye, why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? We like saying that, ye of little faith. Why are you scared? You know you got God with you in the boat. You know what he's capable of. Why are you even scared? It's just a little storm. I mean, why do we get scared when there's a little storm?
We don't see it. We don't
That's
see what's
right.
gonna happen.
And so we wake up Jesus.
Why do we always wake up Jesus when the storm gets here?
I don't know.
Wake him up.
But I know to have faith, it's got to be exercised. It's just like a muscle. If you want your muscle to grow, you got to exercise it. If you want your faith to grow, you're going to have to go through some stuff. You're going to have to exercise it.
You know, what makes it so bad is a lot of it, I mean, I'm this way, and I know a lot of other folks are this way. I got faith that you can be healed, but I don't have faith that I can be healed.
Ooh, you couldn't strike and he took.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you know, but, I mean, I feel that way a lot of times. I be praying for myself, you know, now because I feel the pressure on my back and everything. And it seems like nothing happens, but I can go and pray for somebody else and it seems like it happens automatically.
Yeah.
You gotta get back to the Lord, the Lord, take this, I don't want this no more.
Just remember them trials that we're going through might be helping us get stronger. James, I think, no, not the book of James, it's 1st or 2nd Peter 1 says that those trials are like gold being put through the fire and made more pure. So, you know, something to think about there too. I'm just gonna recap 6 because I don't think I got done with it. And he said unto them, why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. Now, when you're going through a big storm, and you know that Jesus has intervened, and there's a big great calm, you'll know why. It's because he took care of it. But look at how the other people in the boat responded. They're scared to death of the waves. They're scared of drowning, scared of sinking. And then Jesus sits up, you know, and rebukes the waves and everything. It went from rain, waves, wind, and then like there's a sheet of glass. No wind. You probably see the stars now.
And that scared them too.
Look. The men marvel, saying, what manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obeyed him? One of the other gospels said, and they were more fearful than in the beginning. They were more afraid than it was calm than when it was before.
That was out there on the water and you here in the boat. Praise the Lord. Thank you.
Okay, so we're shifting gears again. Evidently they've done come to the other side. And we've all heard this story, but we're fixing to hear it, and you're going to scratch your head and say, I thought there was only one, but there was really two. Why is there two instead of one? I don't know. But you got to think about the Gospels are kind of like a movie set. If you're trying to, and it's kind of like a movie being directed by 4 different people. If you're looking for a movie to be for children, you're going to do it one way. If you're an action person, you're going to do it a different way, which Mark would have been an action person because Mark goes to there real fast. It's fast paced. If you're doing a documentary, you would want to be, you know, a little bit more educational about what's going on. That would be like Luke. He was a doctor. He explains a lot of the sicknesses in doctor, you know, words. So you got to think there's different views, different camera angles, and that's why sometimes when we read some of these stories, there's different things going on because it's for different people. 28, and when he was come to the other side into the country of the Gergesenes, somebody help me out here. Gergesenes, sounds good. There met him two possessed with the devil, coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. And behold, they cried out, saying, What have we do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? So, point out, we know the story about the possessed man, and his name was Legion. They called him Legion in the Bible. Is this the same man, or is this a different story? Some of the commentators I read, this is a different account. Some of the commentators I read said this is the same account. Who knows? It's a story. It's kind of cool. But the fact that they were driven into the swine, which are pigs, kind of makes me feel like it was the same story, just told in a different way. And that happens. We could play that telephone, ain't that what it's called? Where you whisper into somebody's ear one thing, and by the time it gets to the other side, it ain't even the same word. So you got to think how people work.
Oh my.
So the devils, the demons, the whatever you want to call them, the people that work for the devil know that they have a time. Watch this. Are thou come hither to torment us before the time? And they're talking about their time. You know, they're going to get cast back into hell. 30, and there was a good way off from them a herd of many swine feeding, so that the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into this herd of swine. So the devils, the demons, are asking Jesus for a favor. You know, don't just smoke us. Send us out into these swine. You know? Don't kill us. Just send us out into the pigs over there.
Well, it's bad when they didn't want to go back home.
Yeah, we're gonna see the first account of the swine flu too.
That brings a whole new meaning into like asking each other.
You know, the swine flu. This is the first time you ever seen it.
That's what got started.
32, and he said unto them, Go, and when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine. And behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the waters. Now I'm just going to point out something, not trying to be ugly, but the swine got more sense than we do. You know what I mean? I'm being serious. We mess up and we do evil stuff, and the swine got more sense than we do. They run off into the water. They can't do nothing else. The swine are just swine. They can't ask for forgiveness. They can't do nothing, but they got enough sense not to want to be with an evil thing, you know?
I like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have an option. We don't have to do that. We can ask Jesus. He just explained this all to us. All we need is for us to ask. It's there. We don't have to touch the hem of his garment. We don't have to touch him. All he's got to do is just speak it. Think about that. That's some deep stuff there. The swine can't do it. So they did what they knew what to do. But we have an option. Just think about that. 33, and they that kept them fled. And this is talking about the swine herders, whatever you want to call them, and went their way into the city and told everything and what was befallen to the possessed of the devils. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus. And when they saw him, they besought him that he would depart out of their coasts. Now, just think about this. In another gospel, it describes this guy or these guys And it says that the people in the town were terrified of him, and they would go and make, you know, different routes just not to have to deal with this cat. But when this guy was healed, because it cost them all that money in swine, could you imagine a legion is 10,000, ain't it? Is that about a legion, 6,000, 10,000? So you got a whole bunch of pigs, okay, that just went out into the ocean and drowned, or in the water and drowned. Well, now you out a whole bunch of money, now you want Jesus to lead. Never mind the guy that was possessed by the devil, he's good now. Hey, we want you gone. You just cost us $1 million worth of pigs.
And see, if you read that over in, you read in Mark, the one that was possessed and got healed wanted to go with Jesus. Jesus told him to stay there and witness to the rest of them.
Yeah.
The town run Jesus out of town.
And get this. I'm going to reread 33. And they that kept them fled and went their way in the city, and he told everything. Where does it say he told the man? It wasn't a different one.
It was in Mark.
It was in a different gospel. He told the man to go back to his family because he was wanting to follow Jesus. That was right.
Mm-hmm.
He told him not to tell anybody. Go back to your family. Don't tell anybody. Jesus says, it heals him and tells him not to go tell anybody, and he goes back and tells everybody.
That was the leper.
Oh, that was the leper, wasn't it?
That was the leper back in.
That was this guy too in a different thing. The point I'm trying to make is Jesus goes and says, hey, don't tell anybody. But now we're supposed to go and tell everybody, and we go out and don't tell nobody.
Oh, come on.
You know what I mean?
Well, see, all them was being healed now was going back and telling everybody, and they was all coming to see the miracles that Jesus was working. They wouldn't come for the salvation that they supposed to be.
I think Jesus was also telling them don't tell anybody either too, because he didn't want them to come searching for him, trying to, get him. Yet it wasn't his time. And in John it says it wasn't my time. It ain't my time. It ain't my time. Don't tell anybody it's not my time. We're not gonna go to chapter 9. It's already 5 till, but. Just think about there's enough content we've covered for a preacher to preach for 5 years.
Yep.
It's mind blowing to just really just think about all this stuff that went on.
Mackenzie. I just have to push her on button.